Hi, I'm Anna Denton-Jones of Refreshing Law Limited, and in the next series of sessions I'm going to be talking about the issue of disability and the legislation here in the UK. Now, we used to have the Disability Discrimination Act. That's been superseded by the Equality Act, and disability is now a protected characteristic that's covered by that legislation. The first thing that we need to talk about is actually what is a disability. Now, there's a sort of twofold definition within the legislation. The first aspect relates to certain conditions that have been identified as perhaps needing specific protection within the legislation because it's felt that those conditions sometimes do lead to discrimination. Now, the conditions that are currently covered by that are somebody who's HIV positive, somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, or somebody who has multiple sclerosis. Now, whilst those conditions might not actually be causing anyone a particular problem at the relevant time, just by having the diagnoses, it's felt that sometimes discrimination takes place. So those people are covered automatically. The second aspect of the definition is a very, very broad one, and it's not about whether or not people regard themselves as disabled. So there are people who are covered by the legislation that if you said to them, do you regard yourself as disabled, they would say absolutely not. It's also got absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you are claiming disability related benefits or whether you, for example, have registered for a blue badge to assist you with disabled parking. The definition relates to having a physical or mental condition which has a substantial effect and is long term and has this substantial effect on your ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. So it's got absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you can do your job. It's about how your medical condition impacts upon normal day-to-day things. So, for example, does it affect your ability to concentrate? Does it affect your ability to sleep? Does it affect your mobility? Does it affect continence? Those sorts of questions are the ones that are asked. Now, I said that it's a very broad definition. If I give you some examples of things that have been found to be covered, you'll see the wide range of things that the legislation has been found to protect. So, for example, somebody with some kind of knee or back problem might be covered. Depression can be covered if it's long term, and in this context, long term is something that's going to last forever or has affected you for 12 months or is going to affect you for 12 months or more. So serious cases of depression can be covered. So certainly things like post-traumatic stress disorder, those sorts of depression-related issues will be covered. Bulimia and anorexia have been found to be covered. Epilepsy, somebody who's dyslexic, all manner of conditions have been found to be covered by the legislation. And one of the difficulties for anybody having to deal perhaps with an employee who has got a medical condition of some kind is deciding whether or not something qualifies as a disability. And really, until you go to a court and you get a judge to agree that yes, somebody is qualified by the Act, you're almost left with having to guess and predict what the outcome of a legal decision might be. So what we end up doing is getting medical advice and perhaps getting doctors to discuss what the impact on somebody's normal day-to-day activities might be from a medical condition, and sort of assuming where that advice is that somebody is substantially affected, that somebody has a disability. It's almost safer for the employer to assume that somebody has a disability and act accordingly than obviously denying that somebody has and then perhaps getting into trouble about it later. That's enough for now on disability. In the next session, I will be talking about the different protections that somebody gets within the legislation when they are disabled, and then I'm going to look at the concept of reasonable adjustments and what it is an employer has to do to accommodate a disabled employee. So thank you for listening.